the lord of the manor. The butler is trying on the clothes of the master when he's away. That's the predicament that we're in right now. When the executives return, the ego will be perfectly happy to just, stay silent and be thanked for its wonderful work. But until that time, we're stuck with it. So the ego, what we are doing our thinking with, is of incredible importance to discover something about it. Because it's artificial. It has a birthday. Do not all the sun gods of mythology start as little children? Whether it's Krishna or Quetzalcoatl or Jesus or King Arthur, you see, or whoever. You can't think of Mithras or Ahura Mazda or Horus and not think of the child. Well, aren't they representatives of the sun? And aren't they representatives of the mind? So then why do they always shown being starting as young children first? Even the Buddha. Because there's a metaphor behind that, about the very origins of consciousness. And they represent what? God the Father, who's remote and removed from you. And he sends his only begotten Son now. There's something there about the very consciousness that we're inside our own heads. In the book I talk about Adam being the one cut off and divided. He's deeply traumatized. But we've been told that symbolically. Whoever designed the cover of the E.T. poster, that wasn't some guy just dreaming up that image. He took that image from somewhere. In fact, precisely he took it from Michelangelo, from the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. But Michelangelo was showing God creating Adam. DreamWorks is showing Alien creating boy. Are they going to try? Are we being told something about this other creation in a right-brained way? I actually believe, as a little bit of an aside, but just for those who are interested, I actually believe that what we call the so-called yogic systems may have actually even been devised for the express purpose of combating the alien proclivities, the healing the major trauma experienced by this genetically altered man, for conditioning out the alien DNA. Basically, yoga had to do, it's not the same as the yoga we're doing today, believe me, but yoga has to do with cleansing and hygiene. That's what it was for. Many of the practices of yoga, meaning just to link back. The word means to link back. That's right. Link back to the old ancestral, consciousness that we had before the traumata. With the idea that now we got it, we can't get rid of it. But maybe if we purify ourselves and we have rituals and we have 12-step programs back then and we have shamanic, purifications, maybe we can get back to some sort of semblance of what we were before. Makes greater sense. But this idea that we are creatures of trauma, physiological trauma, that then creates psychological trauma, has been picked up by certain scholars. Tally Kellogg emphasizes the fact that abusive behaviors, whether we direct them towards ourselves, other people, or other species, are not natural to human beings. People enact such behaviors, he says, because something unnatural has happened to them. I and they have become deranged. Now, the schizophrenia was studied by two major people. Two major scholars are experts in schizophrenia. One is your American, Julian Jaynes, and the other is the eccentric psychologist from England, who's now passed away, R.D. Laing. But Julian Jaynes, Jack Barringer in his book Past Shock says of Jaynes claimed that this period, thousands of years ago, was a time of intense psychosis for the emerging human race. Terence McKenna picks up on it and says that Jaynes has suggested that human consciousness has changed its character even in recent historical times. The ego as we know it was not really in existence except under extreme stress. These are scientists who've discovered this through their testing of people. And then it presented itself almost as an exterior intrusion into consciousness, like the voice of a god. Of course, these scholars don't tell you what the trauma was. I do. I know what the trauma was, and it was so severe that consciousness as we know it was shattered forever. Except in a few genius types who have a little bit of access, like voices from the distance, like echoes from the past, are the great geniuses of our time. But most of us, no, it's very, very, and of course we live in a world, make sure we're going to be conditioned into this hyper-linear, very, very hyper-focused left brain type of mentality. David Watson in his book Pathology of Civilization says that we reproduce catastrophe because we ourselves are traumatized. Both as a species and individually, beginning at birth. Because we are wounded, we have put up psychic defenses against reality and have become so cut off from direct participation in the multidimensional wilderness in which we are embedded that all we can do is to navigate our way cautiously through a humanly designed day-to-day substitute world of symbols, a world of dollars, minutes, numbers, images and words that are constantly being manipulated to wring the most possible profit from every conceivable circumstance. The body and the spirit both rebel. Of course they rebel. But we were so traumatized that we kind of now have a fear of nature. Heavily co-opted by the media, by the way. But we have a bit of a suspicion of that old nature because from one point of view, it seemed to do wrong by us. Our earth was just being destroyed under our feet like the worst Charlton Heston disaster movie you've ever seen. My goodness. So after that, you see, the ego could say, no, you trust me. Forget all of that stuff. You listen to me. I'm the way shower. I'm the light holder. I'm the one who leads you to security and stability. And we were so traumatized, we've done it. But look at the effects of that now. Now, R.D. Laing says that's something incredible. As a psychologist, he turned the whole of psychology upside down. He said, insanity is a perfectly natural adjustment to a totally unnatural and negative environment. It's just an adjustment like anything else. If your world is irrational and insane, and you're doing your best to adjust to it, but the result is insanity, don't blame the schizoid person. Schizophrenia is an adjustment, like all mental disease, and even like crime. It's merely a symptom, so don't treat the symptom. Schizophrenia is coined by Eugene Bleuler, and it roughly translates as shattered mind, coming from the Greek schizo, to split or to divide. But remember, these psychotic states are just a compensation. They're a desperate attempt to find a sanity. And the whole human race has been doing it, not just individuals. The psychosis is globalized. And the great genius, of course, Sigmund Freud, who had looked into the psyche deeper probably than almost any other human being, he's discovered something incredible about the split. And his language is even better. He says that starting from speculations on the beginning of life and from biological parallels, meaning he studied physical things, I drew the conclusion that besides the instinct to preserve living substance, there must exist another contrary instinct seeking to dissolve those units and bring them back to their primeval inorganic state. That is to say, as well as eros, there was an instinct of death. And he called that the Thanatos complex. And you'll see in a minute why we're going into this much detail about the death instinct. But Gnostics would always say, hey, we know all about that. We know about the troublesome ego. Thousands of years ago, or hundreds of years ago, we have the Gnostics who said, yes, that's Lucifer. That's the God that, thinks he's God. That's not the real God. That's what they call the demiurge, the king of the world, Rex Mundi. That's your problem. They knew that. I prefer to use more simple language and get this message through to people. Let's stop thinking that we think with the mind. Let's get around the idea that we think for the mind. Get out of the idea that the ego, the mind, the thing you think your thoughts with, is unique to yourself. That's a luxury. But it's also a lie, by the way. We're thinking for the mind, not with it. Your great Alan Watts, he said, we seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own. For we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, but which were given to us by our society. We copy emotional reactions from our parents. Society is our extended mind and body. Absolutely, he's right. Well, your name is borrowed, your religion is borrowed, your clothes are borrowed, your ideas are borrowed. Tell me what's unique. Every human being can clearly know what it is that makes them the same as everybody else. We all support the same team. We all vote the same way. We all like such and such. Very few people can tell you what really makes them unique. We belong to schools where they couldn't care less what makes you unique, unless it serves the beast, of course. Then they're very interested. And let's plug into this. Let's overlay on what I'm just saying about the origins of the ego, something else that needs to be taken into consideration. Up until recent historical times, and I mean recent, agricultural age, industrial age, up until recent times, life expectancy of the average human being was between 20 and 25 years of age. So psychologically, if you have a very short physical life, then psychologically, the human being did not progress much further than what is known as the animistic or infantile phase, basically about 13-year-old teenager, at best. So therefore his world was therefore one of superstition and wild and uncontrollable emotionality and fear of the unknown. The rational apparatus, which affords us a truer reckoning of objective reality, is therefore an exceedingly recent development. And many people in today's world are just as psychologically primitive and as arrested as those rural ancestors, by the way. Hence, the rise of this evangelism and conservative politics. See, in those days it was just devils or gods. It was very easy, right? If somebody didn't take water from the well right, you burned them at the stake. Listen, some Latin American countries, it's the same story. In India, where one of my side of the family is from, they're fanatics, they're maniacs. You wear the wrong clothes, the wrong color